Michigan DUI lawyer coming to you this afternoon from the Cedar Swamp, way up northern Michigan. Hey, for all the haters out there that say, oh, you shouldn't drink and drive, and have this very negative attitude in my comments, can you be convicted of driving drunk because you ate, for example, I don't know, rice or something like that? Think about it for a second. Many years ago, I read a peer-reviewed journal article out of Japan where a handful of patients had been studied. They eat a breakfast, a large amount of rice, and were producing alcohol in their stomach that actually made them have an alcohol level that was over the legal limit just from eating rice. And earlier this year, I read an article about a Belgian man who was acquitted of driving drunk after he had been stopped by the police. Auto Brewery Syndrome was the defense in that case, and they established that he hadn't drank any alcohol. And this one's great. A couple of years ago, this I believe 2016, a truck driver was driving 11,000 salmon and crashed his truck and used the Auto Brewery Syndrome as his defense, indicating he had not drank any alcohol, but his body actually created this. Now, how true can this be, right? Well, it turns out, especially since COVID, that this is actually becoming more and more studied. The ACG Case Reports Journal published a study earlier this year indicating that since COVID, we see these microbes that create alcohol. Here's the thing. Do you know how alcohol is created? Alcohol is created when you take a carbohydrate, a sugar, and you combine it with a yeast or, in this case, a microbe. So since COVID, we're seeing an increase in the amount of Auto Brewery Syndrome. Now, that peer-reviewed journal article was from earlier this year in 2024. Here's another one, a case example. This is from the Canadian Journal of the Medical Association up there. A 50-year-old woman who was naturally creating alcohol based upon her diet. So this is a reputable journal out of Canada where they studied this woman, 50 years old, who is naturally creating alcohol as a condition of her diet. Just eating carbohydrates is enough to put her up over the legal limit. So in Michigan, in order to be convicted of driving drunk, you need to be under the influence of alcohol, controlled substances, or a substance that has an impairing effect upon the human body that is not food. It's important to specify it cannot be food. But in fact, what we're finding more recently, I mean, there's literally a dozen articles, peer-reviewed journal studies that have come out in 2024 that discuss Auto Brewery Syndrome. Now, this dates back to the 80s, and I think that there might even have been some earlier cases than that were studied. But this is becoming a growing problem, especially since we're seeing a relationship between Auto Brewery Syndrome and COVID. After a person has COVID for whatever reason, they have a tendency to, we're seeing an increase in the amount of Auto Brewery Syndrome. So you can't be convicted of driving drunk merely based upon the consumption of food. And frankly, you probably wouldn't even know, because the amount of alcohol, as it's gradually being produced by your stomach and being distributed through your system, you might feel dizzy or woozy or I don't know what's wrong with me and that sort of thing. In fact, you're drunk. You just don't know that you're drunk because what were you doing? You were eating pizza, you were eating bread, you were eating rice, something like that. And this is something that jurors need to consider in the right case.